Hello, welcome, Cabbage here. So Umbra Ray's put up a video about his thoughts on EX jobs 4 months after the debut in War of the Visions, JP, and I was very interested to hear what he had to say. I watched him for years about Brave Exvius, and I was happy when he picked up War of the Visions. He is a critical thinker. He doesn't just parrot memes and conventional wisdom. I don't agree with everything he says, of course. No one should agree 100% with anyone, but I admire how he comes to his conclusions. I started writing a script kind of going off his video, but I went on a bunch of tangents, so this is just a mishmash of responses to his thoughts, but also just my own random thoughts on semi-related stuff. There is some vinegar in here, but none of it is directed at Umbra, keep that in mind. And in the background I'll play some footage of me leveling my Mont to job level 22 on my free-to-play account. Hopefully my talk is not longer than that footage. I make tier list videos for old units getting EX job awakenings, but I don't include new units because they would all be no-brainer or best. It's just the nature of newer jobs, exclusive jobs, better master abilities, etc. Umbra talks about something similar in his video. The old units that can compete at the top of PvP are rare, and often special in some way, either limited like Christmas Mashidi or Warrior of Light, or cost 100 like Gilgamesh. Everyone else is better for like PvE or very specific team builds. But in those videos, I don't talk about the game big picture, like speed of power creep, rise in price to play, etc., so I'm happy to have the chance to talk about that stuff here. Umbra said the game was expensive from the beginning, and yes, absolutely. That's compared to other mobile games. And we agree that balance was good, where you could use units in PvP 6 months or a year later, pre-EX jobs without much drop-off. The game was feeling pretty good that first year. And then the recent JP reaction to the game becoming expensive is as much a focus on cost 100 units as it was EX jobs. It was just everything together. If the game had gone hard on just one or the other, that still would have been no bad, but somewhat palatable. But both together I feel is too much, and it's why I can't work on cost 100 units. Not in real time, anyway. And here is one of my side tangents, but I want to make really clear that there are two main types of power creep, player side and game side. Player side is how powerful players can get their units, equipment, espers, etc. Game side is how difficult PvE gets. If game side power creep stays in check, players don't need to spend and grind for the newest stuff. I have noticed that in JP, in the last tower, in the latest 3-star Esper fights, in the selection quests, you don't need EX job units. They make things easier, but they're not necessary yet. Game side power creep is led by the developers. They design the quests. Player side power creep, however, is led by the whales. That might sound silly because players don't design the game. But the developers only offer up these new things, and they have no impact on the meta until the players accept it. If you think about it, Helena and Mont and Dwayne lead the PvP meta now in JP, but if just everyone ignored those 3 units, didn't pull them, didn't level them, didn't use them, power creep would have slowed down. And as one example, Stern, he's really good in PvP now in JP. And that's thanks to dark buffs from Helena, Dwayne, and Garble, but he's got to be EX jobs, and you got to have Helena, Dwayne, and or Garble. EX Stern by himself in PvP is not going to cut it, like some more recent units. My ultimate goal in playing mobile games is to get the most fun for the longest time for the least amount spent. And in reaching for that goal, I'm fighting off 3 things: burnout, FOMO, and bankruptcy. Recognizing my personal playstyle and my limits is super important in making this happen, and one of the biggest goals of this channel is to spread the word of my Zen approach to these games, so that people can have a healthier experience with the game. The healthier experience people have, the more players we have, potentially the more revenue the company gets, and the better game we have overall. By the way, some people might have heard my least amount spent comment and laughed out loud, but that ties back to my personal playstyle idea. I know myself, and I know the type of playstyle that I enjoy the most, and the scrabbling for materials and limited options free-to-play style is not for me. Some people do enjoy that playstyle the most, and some people just have no choice, and I respect that. But I hate it for me, and I'm lucky enough to be in a position where I can spend. And so I enjoy my JP account way more than my global account. And the biggest move I made in War of the Visions to fight off burnout and FOMO and bankruptcy was to step back from PvP. I would say the majority of players see the game and speak about the game in terms of PvP. Like, this unit is worth getting, and this vision card is worth leveling, and this equipment is worth crafting, if it's good for PvP. But if you can let go of the idea of PvP being important, or like the most important, then it's like the clouds part and it's all sunshine, because you're just playing for PvE, which is much more relaxed and cheaper. But what do you miss by giving up PvP? Bragging rights, community, and non-unique rewards. For some people, bragging rights and community are very important to them. And again, if that is their personal playstyle that they enjoy most, I respect that. My worry is that people that are not super familiar with the game, or with their own personal playstyle, get swept up in all the talk that is PvP-centric, and end up doing things out of their comfort zone, or spending beyond their budget, and just having a miserable experience. Getting back to those non-unique rewards, you don't get any out of PvP, and that's good. The moment that happens, the game becomes pay-to-win. Some people use the term pay-to-win with War of the Visions, but I'm like, win what? As long as PvP doesn't give you any unique advantage, then the game is technically pay-to-play, which I hope it always stays. And thinking about it that way, it actually makes more sense to build to clear the selection quests rather than PvP, since those do indeed give you unique rewards in UR units. But while neither Camilo nor Muraga look game-breaking, they do feel niches and they can give you a unique advantage in the right situation. Umbra Ray also talked about maybe EX jobs being just the beginning, and I agree. We might get job level 25 for the 2 sub-jobs. We might get a max unit level 160. Just for simplicity's sake, we'll just assume that that is what is coming. I'm okay with it because it's inevitable. Every mobile game introduces stronger versions of units. But this first step coming so early in the life of the game worries me. Power creep did jump with EX jobs, but it's not like it obsoleted everything that came before it. And that is the moment that I'm afraid of, and that is why I don't like this first batch of EX jobs coming so quickly, because of what comes after unit level 160. In more than a few games, they have introduced all new forms, which do obsolete everything before it, and basically the developers are throwing out your old account and asking you to start over, reinvest all over again. And that move undercuts everything I'm trying to achieve by having the most fun for the longest time for the least investment. At 2nd anniversary, are we going to see EX subjobs? And then at 3rd anniversary, are we going to see the crazy new form that obsoletes everything that came before? And then will that make me want to quit? 3 years is pretty good for a mobile game these days, but for a giant property like Final Fantasy, that's not very long. 10 years, like they said in the live stream, is super ambitious, but if they rush the power creep and spending increases, it's going to make that less and less likely. I want to believe the developers will not let things get out of hand, but it's impossible to say. Umbra Ray also talked about Global being more generous, maybe as a reaction to the JP users' pushback, but I'm going to disagree there. I think they are being more generous to Global because Global players historically spend less and complain more in all Global versions of Japanese mobile games, and the developers understood that before they ever released the game, I'm sure. They have shown repeatedly over the last year and a half that they know the history of mobile games in both Japan and overseas, and they're taking to heart the lessons that a lot of companies learned the hard way. We'll never know who is right, Umbra or me, on this until the developers say, and they're never going to say, so we'll just leave it there. But yes, just like Umbra Ray said, for EX jobs you need more of everything, and it raises the price of the game. But to give a little bit of a cultural context, there is a legitimate gameplay point to it. Japanese players just enjoy grinding and leveling and suffering, and I hear it over and over again from Japanese players, but when they finish leveling a character, they feel let down. That idea might sound foreign to folks overseas. Maybe it's like Japanese players enjoy the work, while global players are more goal-oriented. You can tell me which of those two you find more gratifying. I remember when the game was new in global, and people were like, oh my god, you need 63 recipes to craft a +5. And I was like, oh child, you're just scratching the surface. Now again with EX jobs, people are like, oh my god, I need 400 shards. And again, that's just scratching the surface. I think we're all coming to terms in global with how much farming and how much materials are needed to raise these characters. And I've said it before, but I'll say it again. If you are free to play, maybe aim for 1 or 2 units a month to take to EX jobs, unless you want to spend solid days on end in multiplayer rooms. I think aiming just for 1 or 2 a month will keep you sane. But that also means that you're going to have to be picky about which units to awaken, and then, of course, you won't be at the top levels of PvP. Although, as we can see from this video, even on a free-to-play account, you can blow a day's refreshes and get a lot of the materials you need to take a unit to 115 or 120. Ultimately, I think it's going to come down to how many stamina refresh pots they hand out, and of what level. I was very surprised and pleased to see XL stamina refresh pots, and hopefully they keep handing those out often. As for the question of new units getting EX jobs at release, I know that Umbra floated the idea of like old units only getting EX jobs. That's a tough question, I think, because looking back, I feel like if Yuna, Tita, and Auron had not gotten EX jobs at release, they would have been pretty meh units in PvP. They would have been competitive against other 99 units, but not other EX job units. And so the best units in the game would have been like Stern, Rob, and Edide. That would have been fun, but we have to remember to see things from the point of view of the company. And then if the old units are better than the new ones, then why pull the new ones? I mean, you look at most other mobile games, old units get buffed all the time, but still, the new limited units in particular are going to do things other units can't, or be able to go to places that other units can't, and that's how the company makes money. And so I wouldn't have been surprised if they hadn't given EX jobs to those Final Fantasy X units if a lot of people would have skipped Final Fantasy X and just waited until those units got the EX jobs, in which case why have a collaboration in the first place? The company has to sell the new stuff to keep the game alive, and so they didn't really have a choice but to give the new units EX jobs as well. It was either all units get EX jobs including the new ones, or none of them did. Of course, I would have preferred none, or I would have preferred they do like something smaller, like a second master ability or something, but we can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, unfortunately. And so, we're at a major turning point in the game, and we as players have to make a decision here. There are a few options. One is to say screw this and quit. That's a legit response. Quitting over a spike in power creep or money cost is totally understandable. Another is to keep playing and spending, the same as before, but fall behind. And yet another option is to step up our playing and spending, and then keep up with this new speed. For now, I'm going to maintain, or even slow down my pace in both versions, and fall behind. And so then it's really just a matter of time before I fall so far behind that I lose motivation to play. And we'll see if that is a year from now, or 2, or 3, or whatever. Depends on how the developers handle the game. Okay, so those were some thoughts inspired by Umbra Ray's video, and then some additional random thoughts on the side. Alright, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again. Take care.